There's a specific kind of relief that comes the first time you hear the word. Narcissism, gaslighting, trauma bond, covert control. And I remember it described to me again and again by women who came to our first conversation already fluent in the vocabulary. They had watched the videos, some of mine. They have read the books, maybe some of mine. Listened to the podcasts. And they could explain in clinical language exactly what was happening to them and why. They could name his patterns before he completed them. She could predict the cycle with the precision of someone who had been studying it for years. Why? Well, because she had been studying it. Because the studying felt like something. It felt like progress. It felt like the fog finally lifting. It felt like being seen by the content, by the community, by the language itself, in a way that the marriage had never seen her. And then I would ask gently, but directly, how are things at home now? And the answer was almost always the same. About the same. Maybe a little worse, because now I understand what's happening and I can see it more clearly, and somehow that makes it harder, not easier. You see, the gap between knowing and changing, between understanding and transforming, between the relief of recognition and the reality of Tuesday morning. That's what I want to talk about today, here in this video. Before we go into this, if this channel is new to you, please subscribe and click the like button. This is where we go past the recognition and into the work that actually changes things. And if you're ready for that conversation now, there's 2 links below. One is a link to the Detox Your Marriage community, which is a private space for women navigating exactly this. There's also a link down below to book a call, a brief consultation call with me directly. Now, let's get into it. I want to start by honoring what recognition does, because it does something real and important, and I don't want to diminish it by any stretch. When you first understand what's happening in your marriage, and understanding that it has a name, that it's not your oversensitivity or your spiritual immaturity or your failure at being a good enough wife. When you understand that, something genuinely shifts. The self-blame lifts. The confusion that's been your daily companion starts to resolve into a pattern. And you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And you start asking, what the heck is this? And that is a profound, and it's a necessary move. It's moving the needle. Recognition also gives you community. For a woman who's been carrying this alone, performing okay to the outside world while privately unraveling, finding a community like our Detox Your Marriage community that says, yes, we know, we've been there too, and we believe you. That's not a small thing. It is for many women the first time they have felt less alone in years. So I want to be clear, recognition is not nothing. It's necessary. It's the first chapter. But here is what recognition cannot do. It cannot change how your nervous system responds when he walks into the room. It cannot rewire the attachment that has formed over years of the intermittent reinforcement. It cannot rebuild the self that was slowly eroded through sustained criticism and control. It cannot give you back your voice, your sense of reality, your emotional sovereignty, your fundamental okayness with yourself. Like just naming those things doesn't fix, simply by naming what took those things. Recognition tells you the name of what happened to you, but it does not undo it. Here's something I observe consistently, and I want to name it honestly because I think it serves you better than leaving it unspoken. Recognition for many women becomes a place to live rather than a place to pass through. And I understand why. The recognition space is validating in a way that almost nothing else in her life has been. The content affirms her, the community sees her, the vocabulary gives her something to hold on to when the confusion tries to return. And all of that is genuinely valuable. But there's also a way in which staying in the recognition space, consuming more content, learning more language, refining her diagnosis of him with greater precision, that can become a substitute for the more interior work that actually changes how she feels and how she functions. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You can become the world's leading expert on narcissistic dynamics and still flinch when he raises his voice. You can still name every manipulation tactic with clinical precision and still find yourself apologizing for something you didn't do. You can understand trauma bonding completely and still feel the pull of the cycle as powerfully as when you did before you knew what to even call it. Knowledge changes your mind. It does not automatically change your nervous system, your attachment patterns, your deeply held beliefs about your own worth, or the reflexes that were trained into you over years of living in this dynamic. For those things to change, something different is required. Trauma is not something you remember. It's something your nervous system learns. If you ever thought, I understand my trauma intellectually, but my body still does not feel safe, this book is written for you. In the Trauma Recovery Blueprint, I introduce the Relational Nervous System Integration Model. It's an integrative framework that bridges polyvagal theory, internal family systems, and EMDR-informed trauma healing. It helps explain how trauma reshapes the body, emotional patterns, relational expectations, and the nervous system itself. This is not simply a book about coping. This is a whole new framework for understanding healing. The Trauma Recovery Blueprint is out now on Amazon. Click the link below for more information. So what does change actually require? I want to be specific because I think this conversation is usually left at the level of abstract, and that does not serve anyone. Change, real, durable, interior change, requires three things that recognition alone can't provide. The first, it's embodied work. The nervous system doesn't change through understanding, it changes through experience. Through repeated, felt encounters with a different way of responding, a different sense of what is safe, a different relationship between your internal state and the external circumstances. This is slower than reading another book, and truthfully less satisfying in the short term, but way more real and powerful than anything else. The second is identity reconstruction. The erosion that happens in a narcissistic marriage is not just behavioral, it is structural. The sense of who you are, what you deserve, what you can trust, what you're allowed to want, all those things have been quietly rebuilt around his definitions. And undoing that is not a matter of reading another book or listening to another podcast. It's the deliberate, supported, and deliberate process of rediscovering who you were before the rebuilding happened and actively choosing, mind, body, and spirit to inhabit her again. The third requirement is supported practice. Not support in the sense of validation, although again, validation matters. Support in the sense of someone who knows where you're trying to go and can help you navigate the specific terrain between here and there. It's like a Sherpa guiding a team to the peak of Everest. Somebody that's been there before and knows the route. Somebody who can identify what you've been doing automatically and can help you learn to do it differently. Someone who can hold you accountable, not to a set of rules, but to your own deepest sense of who you want to be. So, recognition opens the door, and these three things are what allow you to walk through it. So stay with me to the end of this video because I want to tell you what the move from recognition to change actually looks like in practice. Not in theory, not aspiration, what it concretely looks like for the women that I've watched and guided make that change. So stay with me. I want to describe it as honestly as I can. doesn't look dramatic. It's not a breakthrough moment where everything becomes clear and the path forward suddenly appears and, the sun breaks through the clouds and there's an angelic chorus. Sorry, it's quieter than that. It's more durable, though. It's not a moment. It's a new trend. It looks like a woman who, in the middle of a conversation that has always ended the same way, notices in real time what's happening, not just intellectually, but in her body, and makes a different choice. A small one. Maybe she doesn't explain herself for the third time. Maybe she doesn't apologize for bringing something up. Maybe she stays with what she said without amending it into silence. And nothing external changes in that moment. He responds the way he always responds. The conversation ends the way it always ends, but something in her is different. Something held. Something didn't collapse the way it always has in the past. It looks like a woman who, for the first time in a long time, does something small entirely for herself, without calculating whether it's allowed, without waiting for his mood to be right, without justifying it to herself as serving someone else's needs. And she notices with some surprise that she didn't dissolve or come undone when she made that choice. It looks like a woman who begins to need his approval slightly less than she did the week before, and then slightly less than that. Who discovers slowly that her okayness does not actually live inside his response to her, even though it's been living there for years. Can you see that these seem like small movements? They are also the only movements that lead anywhere real. So I want to say something to the woman who's watching this and feeling a specific kind of discomfort. The discomfort of recognizing that she spent a long time in the recognition space, that she knows so much, she's expert, and still stuck. And that maybe the knowing has become in some way that she didn't intend a place to stay rather than a place to move through. If that's you, I want you to hear this without any judgment attached to it. You didn't fail by spending time in recognition phase. You needed what it gave you, and it gave you something real, and it gave you the first chapter. And now you're ready for the next one. The next chapter is the interior work, the embodied, identity level, supported work of not just understanding what happened to you, but actually transforming how it lives in you. Of becoming from the inside out the woman who's no longer run by this dynamic, regardless of whether the dynamic ever changes. This is the work I built the RSVP protocol around. Reclaim your life, your voice, yourself without leaving your marriage. It's not a guide to understanding narcissism. You don't need that. It's a guide to transforming yourself in the presence of it. Because understanding was never going to be enough for you. You have always deserved more than recognition and understanding. The book is coming out very, very soon, in a couple of weeks. And if you're ready to begin the next chapter now, then I invite you to book a consultation call, free, no strings attached consultation call with me right now. The link is down below. Recognition was the beginning. And now you're ready for what comes next. I'll see you in the next one.